All right, folks, and we're back, and joining me live is Travis Haley from Arizona. And before we went to break, we started to touch on the aspects of actually teaching people how to shoot. And so I'll just ask you flat out, what do you think it takes to teach the way you do?
I think, well, first, as I've been saying, understanding people is the number one attribute to it. And I use the word teacher or instructor very carefully, and kind of like Bruce Lee did, and I just recently started reading and studying him in the last year or two. And I was like, wow, there's a lot of crossover here from his mindset. And I agree with what he said. He finds it almost impossible to actually teach somebody something. And I know that sounds crazy. It's like, well, why would I spend my hard-earned money and time to go to your class if you can't teach me something?
Yeah, you tricked me.
Right. And it's because only you can really follow through on the teaching aspect, right? It's a student and teacher combination. It's not just the teacher coming in and saying, hey, man, here's my resume. This is how many combat tours I got. This is how long I've been shooting, how many millions of rounds. Here's my program instruction. Now you better keep up. And that's what I see that. I mean, it has to happen to some regard in the military and law enforcement, because you got to see who can hang with that stress mentality. But when I've got 3 days or 5 days or 6 days to work with somebody, attrition is not my mission. It's upholding a higher standard of care for everybody. And so I think that's where the understanding of people comes into play. So I always use like a GPS analogy. When that GPS tells you to turn right in 900 feet, because you're trying to get from point A to B, is it actually physically attached to the steering wheel? Does it turn the car?
No.
No, you turn the car, right? So all we are is a GPS that we come in and we give you the information, which has a lot of data, a lot of research, a lot of failure, a lot of success, a lot of roads, because not everybody wants to take the same road, and that's, I think, what other instructors or teachers out there need to understand, is that don't try to ever twist somebody into your own preconceived notions or experiences. Even though it unquestionably works for you, it may not work for that person. And so, again, my biggest responsibility as a teacher is to protect people from my own preconceived, notions or patterns. Because again, some things work for me, but that's why we get into the science of what we do. That's why we study biomechanics, why we study the brain, because as you know, like you and your partner we talked about earlier are two totally different people. So why would I come into a classroom and say, hey, here's my 2 cents, now keep up? My job is to share information, share our research, share our failures and success, and then spend those days keeping up with the student population. And I think that's where a lot of times people either don't know that when they get into the training community and they want to be an instructor, because I know some guys got some phenomenal experience in shooting and running and gunning and combat, but they can't articulate. But they will if they learn. I couldn't speak, man. If you heard me in my first course, my first company, I was like, people are like, and so I had to go, okay, well, that didn't work out. Now, what do I do about it? Now, how do I be resourceful and become a better person? And I learned through these years that really paying attention to people, really understanding people and what motivates them, what's their belief system, and then how do you help them execute that belief system is critically important.
Yeah. So, I've taken my fair share of courses, and, for me, the biggest thing is the communication aspect. Because like you said, you can have all the abilities in the world, but if you can't tell me how to, not necessarily do it, but how to teach myself how to do it and how to walk away with information that I understand, like I was always taught, you've got to speak in a way that people can understand whatever complex notions or thoughts that you may have that you're trying to communicate to someone. It means nothing if you just talk over people's heads and they don't get it. And so, and for me, when it comes to instruction, that's the biggest thing for me, which I think in a lot of ways why I speak in analogies quite a bit. Because, and as kooky as they may come across sometimes, I bet you got what I was trying to put out. You know, like that's the point, especially when we're talking about something as fluid and elusive as an emotion from shooting a gun. Right.
Well, I think, and I think something else that people need to keep in mind is you'll hear it a lot. Keep it simple, stupid, right? Yeah. The KISS method. Absolutely 100%. If I pick up this device, okay, which everybody knows what that is.
Shameless Apple plug.
That is, what's that? Sorry, we're Mac guys. So that is a keep it simple, stupid device, but not because I told, or they told me, hey, keep it simple, stupid. It's like the fighter pilot, where the analogy actually came from when they were building a Lockheed Martin SR-71 Blackbird and the U-2 spy plane. They said, keep it simple, stupid in program development as a engineer, as a teacher, as a developer, not get up to the pilot and say, hey, man, before the cockpit closes, just keep it simple, stupid, all right? Because he's going to be like, dude, I'm a high performer. Get out of here. Who is that guy? You know? So he needs to have performance, but he does need his machine to work around him. So we don't have to work around it, which is what was their biggest marketing pitch, right?
Yeah.
So that's where we use keep it simple, stupid. And I see a lot of guys saying, hey, man, just keep it simple. There's no way you're going to be able to do that under stress. Well, I'll prove you wrong because of science, not because I just was able to do it, but because we know what the human body is capable of doing. And everybody's different, so we got to tweak everybody different again. And that's where I always come back to understand the student you're talking to, not just the group of them. Everybody's different.
Gotcha.
And you got to get to know them.
Okay. So. Now, I want to kind of get into a kind of a more concrete aspect of firearms and shooting. Basically, let's talk about the guns. And I get a lot of questions from people who are like, I have, for instance, when it comes to the AR-15, they typically only have money to put down for a pretty decent AR, but then questions then become, and then they have really no intent on buying multiple ARs. So they want to kind of get something that kind of can do a little bit of everything well. Does that exist? Is that even possible? Or do you, in a sense, are you forced to have to buy multiple ARs to fill certain specific roles as a civilian? Of course, I know when we start talking military applications and things like that, that's a little bit different. Right.
No, absolutely. There's obviously look at the world out there in rifles, and today, I mean, there's some phenomenal manufacturers out there. There's some that aren't doing the best that they could do. There is always the time, the money aspect, the research that these companies either can or cannot put into their product development. So that's the big part. And I only advocate companies that, and I think for that customer you're specifically talking about.
Yeah.
And that's where the whole mil-spec thing gets out of hand and stuff. But it does mean something. And if you could go into some of these manufacturers like Bravo Company or Daniel Defense or some of these other great, I can't even name them all, so I apologize to all those guys out there. But they're doing the work, man. They're doing the research. They're doing the testing. They're scoping stuff out. Everything's micro-viewed. And that simple platform, that keep it simple gun, comes out to the market at a really good price, and it works all around for the most part, you know. And so I think that you don't need to go crazy and spend thousands of dollars. Just go with a reputable brand that you know is proven, you know. And that's again a full-time job.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And you don't need to go whiz bang on everything.
Yeah.
You know, build up in steps. It's just like you go out and you buy, like a lot of people out here like to buy Jeeps, man. And they'll go out and they'll buy the baseline Jeep, and then what can you do to it? You can build it specific to how you're going to go out and drive it. You know, you may never take it off road, but I just want it to look cool.
Yeah, I have a friend like that. He literally could drive through hell, and he literally doesn't drive anywhere except his parking garage.
Yeah, and then there's a guy that has the same vehicle that takes it off road.
Yeah.
And I think that comes back to our industry is everybody's like, well, you don't need all that crap, or, oh, you need all that crap, but you're never going to use it. It's like, well, wait, I can do whatever I want because it's my right, number one, and I enjoy it. It's a lifestyle. It's a hobby. And I think that's where a lot of the riffs and stuff start to happen. But it's like, you know what works for you?
I mean, hell, I have the biggest poser gun on the planet. I have a SBR HK MR556 made in every shape and fashion to look like a 416. For what? I have things on there I'll probably never. So
you actually shot a real 416.
Exactly, and that was actually pretty fun. That was pretty fun. And I just only wish I had that switch that went all the way around so that I could make mine do that. Then I'd be all good. I wouldn't even need another rifle.
Right. And a lot of people say, "What do you need that for?" Because
I can come up with some reasons. That's the funny thing. When people ask me questions like that, I'm like, do you know who you're talking to? I can come up with some reasons. I sat on the phone for 30 minutes one time, and he's like, I want you to come up with a reason for every rifle that you own. 30 minutes in, he's like, all right, I get it. So if you force me, I can come up with the reason. Yeah. But, man.
You're about to get a lot of emails.
I'm pretty sure I am. But, I mean, I really appreciate it. It's always a pleasure talking to you. And I always learn so much from talking to you and having our conversations going back and forth. I hope this isn't the last time you join us. I don't know if it's one of these kind of like one-time things where you're like, I'm never going back on that show again. But it's an open door policy here for you. So
you're thanks, man. Well, just like with you, I'm going to text you the day before, and I'll be there. Don't text me 3 weeks before.
Don't text me 3 weeks before because trust me, I'm going to come up with some issues. But I really appreciate it, Travis, and thank you for joining us on Seeing Live. And you have a good one.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. And that was another wonderful episode of Seeing Live. This is Colion Noir, and I'm out.